Hey everyone, assalamu alaikum. How are you all doing? I hope you're doing well. I'm just going to wait a moment for some people to start joining. The purpose of this live is to be a sort of apology from me. I'm really sorry, I messed up. I didn't manage to save the amazing live conversation I had with Brother Zahir earlier today. He's the founder of Aafiah Healing, and the conversation I had with him was amazing. And unfortunately I wasn't able to save it, and I feel terrible because there were so many of you that were looking forward to watching the recording. And literally the whole of today I tried, I was searching online, is there a way to recover deleted IG lives, and unfortunately there isn't, if you don't save it. So inshallah today I will save this live, and what I actually did to make sure that it will be saved is I went to my settings on Instagram, and inshallah it will back it up. It will save directly to archive, so then I can share it inshallah. So basically the purpose of today is to share as much as I can with you all about what I learned from today's live, meaning all the gems and all the important information that Brother Zahir shared with us during that live, based on my own memory. And obviously my own memory is limited, but based on my own memory, everything that I can personally remember that he shared during that live, I'm going to be sharing it with you. And literally what I did is I spent today writing down loads of notes of what I remembered, and then I typed it all up. So I'm literally, if you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at my notes and I want to share it with you. I do want to say that I'm not the expert on emotional healing. Brother Zahir is, so definitely reach out to him. You can find him at Aafiah Healing. Reach out to him if you're serious and you're committed about your own healing, your emotional healing. I will also inshallah create a post which will be on my IG feed. I'll create a post sharing the main key takeaways from that live discussion, but obviously a post is a lot more limited. So if you want everything, then inshallah watch this entire video, whether you're here live or whether you catch the recording of this. I'm going to share everything that I learned, and this Friday, inshallah, at 8:30 p.m, we're going to be doing a Q&A, Brother Zahir and I, inshallah. So if you can, it's at 8:30 p.m. UK time, so if you can, attend live to ask your questions. If not, I have a question box on my stories where you can ask any questions related to emotional healing. The focus of the live discussion that we had was around women's reproductive health issues or women's sexual health issues. So things like PCOS, endometriosis, fibroids, ovarian cysts, irregular periods or a lack of periods. So anything related to reproductive health. But also we talked about areas related to sexual health as well. You know that the work that I do involves helping women with issues such as vaginismus, which is a sexual condition. So that was the kind of focus. But what I'm sharing with you can be applied to any condition you're going through, whether you're a man or a woman. Even though the focus was centered around women's health, everything that I share can be applied to you, even if you don't have a reproductive issue and you have a different issue in a different part of your body, or if you're not a woman and you have a different type of issue affecting you, everything I share still applies. So I do want to say before I start that what I'm sharing with you is not prescriptive. It's not like going to the doctor and getting a prescription of this is exactly what medication you need to take and exactly what time you're meant to take it and how many times. It's not prescriptive because you are unique as an individual and you have a unique condition that applies to you. But what I am going to share based on what I learned from Brother Zahir can apply to anyone, like I said, regardless of what condition you have and regardless of whether you're male or female. If you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at my notes. I don't want to miss anything. Okay, so what I'm going to go through today, I'm going to just kind of go through the main way I've kind of structured this live is this. The first thing I'm going to go through are the emotional causes of the condition you're going through. So what emotion is causing the condition that you have? So if you, for example, have PCOS, there is an emotion that's causing the PCOS. If you're struggling with irregular periods or painful periods, there is an emotion causing that. If you're struggling with ovarian cysts or fibroids or PCOS, there is an emotion that's causing it. So I'm going to go through some of the emotional causes of reproductive health conditions as well as emotional causes of sexual health conditions, and they are very, very similar. The next the next thing I'm going to move on to, after talking about the emotional causes, I'm going to talk about why emotional healing is so important. I'm going to move on then to talking about the word insan, the Arabic word insan meaning human, and the 5 parts that make us up as insan or as a human. And then I'm going to end with talking about practical ways to heal. So Brother Zuhair very kindly shared some practical tips and advice and strategies to kickstart your emotional healing, and now is the perfect time, alhamdulillah, before we enter Ramadan. So that's what I'm going to end on, are some practical ways to heal. So let's get started. The first thing is emotional causes of reproductive or sexual health conditions. So your emotions are what cause the condition that you're going through, and it's usually the same emotion that you're feeling now. So whatever emotion you're feeling now that you are going through this condition, so let's say you're struggling with endometriosis or PCOS, thinking about that condition, certain emotions come up for you. How do you feel about that condition? And typically the way you feel about that condition is the same emotion that caused the condition to happen in the first place. So it could be frustration, you feel frustrated that you have this condition, or it could be anger. So whatever emotion you feel right now about the condition you have that you're suffering from, that usually is the same emotion that caused it to happen in the first place. When it comes to women experiencing reproductive health conditions or sexual health conditions, usually the root cause stems from a woman cutting herself off from her femininity. So Brother Zuhair used the word, if a woman found that at some point in her childhood or teenage years, or at some point in her life, she found that she was having to suppress certain emotions and having to man up, meaning having to step more into her masculine side. And each of us, whether we're male or female, have a different ratio and a different balance of masculinity and femininity. But if a woman is constantly shutting down her femininity and suppressing certain emotions and not taking care of herself or taking care of her body, that typically is the root cause of the condition that she's going through. Brother Zuhair then talked about the word womb or uterus in Islam, and the Arabic word is rahim, meaning that the womb is a mercy from Allah. We know that Allah is Ar-Rahim, and the word womb or uterus comes from that. He then started talking about the sacral chakra, and he then started immediately saying, don't all of a sudden start saying chakras are haram, because they're not. There's nothing haram about chakras. He referred to the sacral chakra, which is the chakra in your kind of pelvic area. And he actually talked about what a chakra is, so I'll describe that for you now. The sacral chakra affects the woman's pelvic area, so the reproductive and the sexual organs. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with believing in chakras because Allah created all 7 chakras. A chakra means a wheel or a circle or a vortex. So if you were to type the word chakra into Google, it's spelled C-H-A-K-R-A. You will see a diagram with some circles at different points in your body. And so the word chakra means wheel or circle or vortex. And a chakra is an energy center made up of an electromagnetic field. And us as humans, we are electromagnetic beings. Our thoughts, for example, the thoughts we're thinking in our brain are electrical impulses. Everything around us is energy. Our emotions are energy. If you think about the word emotion, it's energy in motion, emotion. Our thoughts are energy. We have energy within us, within our bodies, and we are radiating out this energy from within us. The energy, we also are absorbing energy. The energy we absorb mentally, emotionally, and physically is what is creating our reality. Continuing on about chakras, the chakras are actually part of the endocrine system. And this is really important based on the discussion we're having about reproductive health issues or sexual health issues, because our endocrine system, which is responsible for creating and regulating our hormones, therefore has an effect on our reproductive organs and our sexual organs. So our chakras are part of the endocrine system, which, like I said, regulates our hormones. If we are experiencing a condition like PCOS or irregular periods, or painful sex, painful periods, endometriosis, any of those conditions that I mentioned earlier, if we are experiencing those conditions, it's typically due to a hormonal imbalance. And so that's related, like I said, to the endocrine system. Hormonal imbalance leads to many reproductive issues in women. It could even lead to things like ovarian cysts or infertility. And a chakra essentially is a center of emotion. Some other emotional causes of the condition that you're going through. So it could be trauma or a memory from your childhood. For example, he gave two different examples. One could be a child, for example, went to the supermarket with their parents and was accidentally lost in the supermarket. So that could have sparked a feeling of fear, being not knowing where his or her parents were. So that could have led to some trauma. So something just like that, just being accidentally lost in the supermarket, could be one of the root causes of the condition that you're going through now, because it wasn't healed. The emotions weren't addressed properly. Could be something else, such as going to nursery or kindergarten for the first time and being surrounded by strangers and not knowing where your parents are or when they're going to come and get you. He went on further to say that children need two main things. They need love and security. So in those examples of being lost in the supermarket or going to kindergarten for the first time and not knowing when your parents are going to come back, they maybe don't feel loved, they maybe don't feel secure, they don't feel safe. So if at any point a child, and usually the condition you're going through now, usually the root cause, the root emotion is something that usually happened to you in childhood. You might think it was something insignificant, but actually it could be the actual cause of the condition you're going through now. If a child lacks love or security, that's what causes trauma. He later on went to go and talk about suppressed emotions. So a lot of the time in certain cultures and sometimes in the Muslim community, children grow up being taught that certain emotions are bad and that you can't, if you feel a certain emotion like anger, you're a bad person for feeling it, and if you ever feel it, suppress it, push it down. So he gave the example of anger. He also gave the example of sexual desire. He later on went to say that if you feel anger, if you feel sexual desire, it's not a bad thing. The feeling itself is not negative, it's just the action and how you act upon those feelings. So some of the main emotions that people are suppressing, which cause the condition you're going through now, are anger and stress. They are the main causes. Like I said, feeling angry doesn't make you a bad person. And in actual fact, suppressing your anger or any emotion is toxic. He went on to say that sometimes a person says, I don't feel angry at all. And so Brother Sahara asks them, what do you actually feel? And they say, I just feel sadness, or I feel frustration. And he said that sadness and frustration is a muted or suppressed form of anger. You're not allowing yourself to feel the full-blown anger, so you end up feeling sad or frustrated. Other causes of the condition you're going through could be sexual trauma. So I know that can sometimes apply to the women I work with who experience vaginismus or painful sex. Sometimes it could be due to sexual trauma, but it's not always. Sometimes it can be. But similarly, any reproductive issues you're going through now could be due to sexual trauma that hasn't been healed. He talked about if a woman is struggling with infertility, sometimes the root cause of infertility could be seeing someone going through a difficult pregnancy. So imagine that a woman or a girl growing up sees someone having a really difficult, painful pregnancy. That might cause a fear in that person. And so that sometimes can lead to infertility. It's the fear of pregnancy. Later on, he went to talk about how powerful our words are. So he gives the example of someone saying really harmful, horrible words to another person, and that person not knowing how to deal with being on the receiving end of those toxic, harmful, horrible words. And he gives the example in the hadith where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, only speak words if it is good, and if it is not good, stay silent, because our words are really powerful. If it's something that's going to harm someone else, we shouldn't be saying it, because the words we say could be the cause of someone's trauma and could be the cause of someone's medical condition that they are now going through. Like I said earlier, suppressing our emotions is toxic. It leads to a build-up of toxicity in our body, and then that build-up can lead to the conditions that you're going through now. Other examples he gave is if you hear someone talking about a painful experience. So for example, if a woman heard another person describe painful sex, that could lead to her currently experiencing painful sex right now. And I asked a question to Brother Zuhair about the difference between something like vaginismus and something like PCOS or having cysts. So with PCOS or having cysts or endometriosis, there are physical symptoms, like you can actually see the cysts, there's actually like the shedding of the lining. There's a physical symptom happening with PCOS or endometriosis. With vaginismus, there isn't necessarily a physical abnormality, but all that's happening is a woman is feeling stressed or fear, and it's causing her pelvic floor muscles to contract. And I asked, is it the same thing? And he said yes, because the root cause of vaginismus or PCOS is an emotion. So the emotion might be fear or stress or anxiety, for example. Let me continue. Okay. With all of the stories that I mentioned, where, for example, a child was lost in the supermarket or a child felt trauma from going to nursery and being surrounded by strangers, all of those stories that happen in your childhood, if you haven't healed from them, and even if you think they're insignificant, if they are constantly coming up, it means it's a story that you are remembering in a negative way. And what we can do is any story from our past or any negative memory that we have, we simply need to reframe those stories. Tell our subconscious mind a different story over and over. And what he said is that the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between real and imagined. So if in real life you experience some kind of real trauma, your brain is remembering that, your subconscious mind is remembering that real situation. But if you now start telling your subconscious mind a new story, an imagined story, a positive story, and you keep on saying that to your subconscious mind over and over, your subconscious mind is not going to know the difference between real and imagined. So if the real story is affecting you negatively, you need to reframe that story to serve you positively. Another example he gave is where some women or some girls, go from being a girl to being a woman and never experiencing painful periods ever. They always get regular periods and the flow is perfect and it's never painful for them. They never have issues with their period their whole life. And then other women, from the moment they get their period, it's just constant pain. It's never regular. There's so much stress around a woman having her period. And he posed the question as to why, and he said the root cause comes back to the emotion, and sometimes it comes back to how a woman was taught about her period. So for example, some girls are taught, expect your period, and when you get your period, it's going to be really painful for you. And so a girl is anticipating her period, she's anticipating pain, and so that's exactly what happens. As soon as she gets her period is painful. Whereas other girls are not taught that. They're not taught that it's painful. They're just taught it's just a natural part of being a woman or being a girl, and they get their period and they never experience issues. So sometimes it's literally from the stories you hear or the words that you heard from someone else. Continuing on, I really like that he gave some other examples that weren't related to reproductive health. He gives the examples of if someone has diabetes, or if someone is suffering from gut issues or IBS. So he said that if someone has diabetes, the root cause, and he asked me, what do I think the root cause of diabetes is? And I said sugar, I said insulin. But he said actually the root cause of diabetes is someone who is struggling to experience the sweetness in life. And I thought that was really powerful. The sweetness in life, and we know that like too much sugar can actually cause diabetes, but actually if someone is struggling to experience the sweetness in life, they may turn to sugar to replace that void within them because they can't taste the sweetness in life, and so that can cause diabetes. The other example he gave is if someone is experiencing gut issues or IBS, and the root cause of IBS or irritable bowel syndrome is a person who is struggling to digest a specific experience or emotion. And he used the word digest on purpose. So if you have IBS, you have digestive issues, but usually the root cause of IBS or gut issues is a person who is struggling to digest a specific experience that happened to them in their life, or they're struggling to digest an emotion. And then that physically affects you and physically affects the whole lining of your gastrointestinal tract. Okay, and then kind of linked to that is the fact that your body is a mirror and a reflection of your most commonly occurring emotions. So the emotions that you are commonly experiencing on a day-to-day basis that are frequently showing up, your body is a mirror of those emotions. So if you're constantly feeling anger and stress and sadness and frustration, that's going to show up physically with symptoms in and on your body. Continuing on from that, final cause, emotional causes of the condition. The final one is where women are taught that their genitals are dirty or shameful. That can lead to reproductive issues, seeing their whole down there area, their whole pelvic area, their whole reproductive organs or sexual organs. If they're taught that those organs are dirty or shameful, that belief can actually cause a reproductive issue like PCOS, for example, or irregular periods, or it could lead to a woman experiencing painful sex or vaginismus. Okay, so I shared with you all of the causes. Now I'm going to talk to you about why emotional healing is important. Thank you so much to everyone who's here. Okay, so he started off by saying that typically when a person or a woman is suffering from a reproductive health condition or a sexual health condition, they will go and see the doctor and they will say that I'm struggling with this symptom or this issue, and the doctor will give them some medicine and essentially say, take this medicine and it will get rid of that symptom that you are experiencing. But doing that on its own is the same as just putting a plaster on something, or putting a band-aid, as they would say in America, putting a plaster on something, putting a band-aid on something, and not really getting to the root cause of why is that symptom showing up in the first place. So getting medication or changing your diet, doing something externally to treat your body isn't enough. The emotional healing needs to be there as well. So it's both emotional and physical healing that need to take place. It can't be one or the other. It needs to be both. The emotional healing is more important than the physical, but they do need to be both there. It needs to be, we need to see ourselves in a very holistic way and treat ourselves in a very holistic way. So let me run through now why emotional healing is so important for you to fully heal from the condition that you're going through in the long term, inshallah. So he mentioned the verse in the Quran that says, Allah will not change the condition of a person or a nation or people. Allah will not change their condition or your condition until you change what is within yourself, what is inside yourself. And so when we think about that, what does that actually mean? It means changing your emotional state, your mental state, okay? He then went on to talk about our heart and the hadith that there is, where the Prophet ﷺ says, there is a piece of flesh, your heart. If it is sound, your whole body is sound, okay? And if it is corrupt, then your whole body is corrupt. So that applies here. You are currently, if you have any condition, any medical condition that you're struggling with and suffering from, we need to think about our heart, okay? And how do we make our heart sound to heal our body physically? He talks about the black dots on our heart as well. So if we have sinned, there are black dots on our heart. And he literally said, if you took a heart from a sinner and a heart from someone who hasn't sinned as much, can we see those black dots? No, because they are spiritual black dots that only Allah can see. So he talks about the black dots, and he talks about the importance of seeking forgiveness. So if we have sinned, we need to seek forgiveness for our own good, because seeking forgiveness is what erases those black dots. It cleanses us, it heals our condition, it's cleansing our heart, our emotions, therefore to heal the rest of our body, heal the condition that you're going through. So that emotional healing is very, very important. I talked about how healing must be holistic. It can't just be focusing on external treatment like medication, or just changing your diet or changing your lifestyle. That's one part of it, but the more important part to start with is the emotional healing. Because without emotional healing, what happens is other symptoms will start to show up in your body, okay? So you're going to treat one symptom with a medicine or changing your diet, but then other symptoms will come up because you're not getting to the root cause, and the root cause is the emotion. He gives the analogy of if you have weeds in your garden that you want to get rid of, if you just take a pair of scissors and cut the weeds, you are not getting to the root cause. Those weeds are going to grow again and they're going to spread. Whereas if you cut the weed from the root cause, then that weed is not going to grow again. Okay. So I've said that. So we need to treat the root cause in order for the effects and in order for the healing to last long term. Getting to the root cause is essential. So he says that when he works with people who have medical conditions who want to heal, he asks them, why do you have this condition? What emotion caused it? What emotion are you feeling now? So whatever condition that you have right now, whatever medical condition that you're suffering from, ask yourself, what emotion are you feeling right now because of this condition? How do you feel about this condition? Do you feel anger? Do you feel really angry that you have this condition? Do you feel really sad? Do you feel really lonely? Do you feel frustrated? Whatever the emotion is that you feel about that condition, like I said earlier in this video, that emotion is what caused the condition to happen in the first place. So let's say the emotion that keeps coming up is anger. You feel really angry that you have this condition. Ask yourself, when was the very first time that you felt the emotion of anger? And sometimes a person struggles with pinpointing when the first time they felt it. So he asks you to kind of go back, kind of like chronologically, going like from, okay, when was the most recent time I felt angry, and writing it down. When was the time before that? When was the time before that? And eventually you will get to a point where you can't go back anymore in your memory, because he said all our memories are stored. Even if we think we've forgotten it, it's still there, stored in our brain. Eventually you will land on one of the first times when you experienced anger as a child, and that scenario, that experience that you experienced back in your life is typically what caused you to have this condition in the first place. So he said that the emotion that you are experiencing now is the same emotion that you experienced when you were a child that is causing this condition. And the emotion you're feeling now, if you're continuing to feel frustrated and angry regularly on a daily basis, they are going to continue to exacerbate your condition and make your condition worse. And it's going to really slow down your healing. Even if you're taking medication and changing your diet, you're not treating yourself holistically. Emotional healing is so important. He said that if you've had symptoms for a long time, I think he said if you've had symptoms for more than 3 months or maybe 6 months, if you've had symptoms for a long time and you're regularly going back to your doctor is eventually going to say your condition is chronic, meaning there's nothing we can do. You need to take this medication for a very long time or for the rest of your life. And some people just kind of accept that as their fate. He said that if you've been struggling with a condition for more than 3 months or more than 6 months or more than a few years, instead of just accepting that this is your fate and that this is a chronic condition that you're meant to live with and put up with for the rest of your life, it's possible to actually reverse your condition if you focus on emotional healing. So this is what needs to be your priority. And he said it doesn't need to take that long. It doesn't need to take the rest of your life to emotionally heal from something, but it is something you need to put consistent effort into. And at the end of this talk, I'm going to give you some of the practical ways that you can start emotional healing. But it's something that you're going to focus on for at least 6 months. Sometimes it can take up to 18 months, he said. But if you imagine, using the next 6 to 18 months of your life to reverse a condition that you're going through that you think you might need to live with for the rest of your life, that 6 to 18 months is going to be well worth it, inshallah. Later on, he said, we were talking about our bodies, and the reason we were talking about that is I was saying that I find that a lot of women, especially, define themselves by their body. So they define themselves by the way their body looks. They define themselves by the condition that they're going through. So if a woman has PCOS, she defines herself by it. If a woman has gained lots of weight recently, she's defining herself by her physical appearance. And I said how important it is for women and men to separate themselves from their body. And he later goes on to talk about the 5 different parts that make us up as insan, as humans. And I'll talk about that in a minute. So it's really important to not define yourself by your body, not define yourself by the physical symptoms that you're experiencing, and also not define yourself by the feelings that you're experiencing right now. If you're feeling sad all the time, or angry all the time, or frustrated all the time, that is not you. It's a part of you. It's an emotion that you are experiencing, but it is not the whole of you. Okay, so let's talk about the 5 parts of the insan, what makes us up. He said it is the mind, the heart, the body, the nafs, which is your soul or ego, and your ruh, which is your spirit. So I'll say that again. The 5 parts that make us up as insan, or as a human, is our mind, our heart, our body, our nafs, or the soul or ego, and our ruh, which is our spirit. He said that the nafs is where our feelings originate, and the nafs wants to do whatever it feels like. Okay, that's where the feelings originate. The nafs wants to do whatever it feels like doing. The ruh, on the other hand, only focuses on wanting to get closer to Allah. Okay, now let's talk about some practical ways to heal. So as I mentioned earlier, in order to heal and to focus on your emotional healing, you can't be expecting it to be a quick fix, because that's what most people do when they go to the doctors and get some medication. They want it to be a quick fix to kind of suppress the symptom they're feeling. But that might work for you in the short term, but it's not going to work for you in the long term. It's not conducive to your long-term, long-lasting healing. So in order to focus on emotional healing, you need to go into it with the right mindset and make the decision that your focus is to prioritize your emotional healing for the next 6 months at least, to potentially 18 months, okay? So when you know that that's the focus, you can be consistently and gradually focusing on daily efforts to emotionally heal. And we're going to talk about what those things are that you should be doing on a daily and consistent basis. If you do this, if you focus on your emotional healing for 6 months minimum to up to about 18 months, roughly, it depends on person to person as well. Doing this can reverse your condition that you're experiencing, instead of you living with it for the rest of your life. So 6 months out of your rest of your life, or 18 months even out of the rest of your life, is going to be, inshallah, well worth it. He also said that sometimes people see emotional healing as something that is really difficult. That's how people think about it. That's their mindset. And he said, actually, emotional healing can be very easy. And when he laid out what you need to do to emotionally heal, if you think about these action items that I'm going to give you, they are not difficult to do at all. The only difficulty is being consistent in doing them. These are not difficult, strenuous things to do. They are easy, they can even be enjoyable to do, but it is down to you to make the decision to be consistent and do these on a daily basis. So he said emotional healing can be easy. The first practical piece of advice he said is to write a letter each day, maybe starting from tomorrow. Write a letter each day for 3 consecutive days. You can even address this letter to Allah, talking about the condition. Write in that letter all the feelings that you're feeling, all the thoughts that you have about this condition, where you think this condition came from, what emotions that you're experiencing now, where you think you first felt that emotion, and talk to Allah as you write that letter. And write a letter, so 1 letter each day for the next 3 days consecutively. So 1 letter today, for example, 1 letter tomorrow, and 1 letter the next day. He then said what you can do symbolically if you want to, completely your choice, but he recommended it. Once you've got all of that out onto those letters, you can then burn those letters. He said, obviously do this carefully, but the reason you burn those letters is to burn up toxicity. So he said anything we have in our environment has it has energy, and if you're writing down all of these emotions, all of these toxic thoughts that are coming out onto you, that piece of paper, those letters are going to have toxic energy, and if you keep them, that energy is going to be present in your environment, in your house. So burning them is very symbolic to let go of that toxic energy. What he did say is if you are burning it, don't inhale the smoke, because it's you then inhaling back the toxicity. So that's the first thing he said, and he recommends, because we are now entering Ramadan, he recommends to do that activity, write a letter for the next 3 days and then burn it. Try and do that before Ramadan. Now, these are the practical steps to follow to focus on your emotional healing. He said that it is important for us to start each and every morning with shukr, gratitude. And he even went on to say that science is proving this, that gratitude has amazing healing benefits and health benefits. But we've always known this in Islam, the benefits of shukr, and shukr isn't just a feeling of gratitude, it's actually an action. So it's you making the decision that you are really grateful for your life and acting upon it. So the way you feel is you feel grateful, but the act of shukr is you doing some kind of action to show Allah how grateful you are. So start each morning with shukr, feeling gratitude and doing an action. And the reason he pointed out that science proves that gratitude is healing, is he was saying that we've always known about this from Allah in Islam. He said, don't always wait for science to prove to you what we already know from Allah and from Islam. He then said to start each morning with shukr and then focus on praying fajr. So when we sleep, there are 3 knots that are tied in the back of our neck, and that each of those 3 knots is untied consecutively, like when you wake up, when you make wudu, and when you start praying, each of those 3 knots is untied. So focus on praying fajr because you will see immense benefits for the rest of your day. He then said focus on praying salat ad-duha. So it's not dhuhr prayer, it's not fajr, it's kind of in between. So it's a prayer that has to happen before salat ad-duha. So he said focus on praying salat ad-duha, which is 2 rakats, because praying salat ad-duha is the same as paying charity for each of the 360 joints in your body. And he said that our body has a right over us, and our body has 360 joints. Praying Salat al-Duha every day is the same as paying charity for each of those 360 joints. And that our body has a right over us, and it is us facilitating our emotional healing. He then said the next thing to do is dhikr, and focus on saying La ilaha illallah. Really, really important. Other forms of dhikr are things like seeking forgiveness and praising Allah. Of course, do those things, but he said focus on dhikr. So this is a daily thing that you need to prioritize and schedule and make sure you do. So included in the dhikr is seeking forgiveness for yourself, but you also forgiving any person or any people who have wronged you. And the forgiveness is really, really important. Yes, inshallah, I will save this. Inshallah, this will be saved. What was I saying? Seeking forgiveness from Allah for yourself, but you also forgiving people who have wronged you. So anyone who, did something terrible to you, or said something bad to you, or did anything bad to you, you choosing to forgive that person. And the reason you need to do that is to liberate yourself. Because he gave this really vivid visual that I'll describe to you now. If you choose not to forgive someone, it's the same as having a noose around your neck or a rope tied around your neck, and you giving the other end of that rope to your perpetrator, to the person that wronged you. That is what happens when you choose not to forgive someone. You are constantly tied to them, and you have given them a lot of power, and you are staying in victim mode. So if you forgive them, it's as though you've set yourself free, you've liberated yourself. The next action item is to focus on Quran, reciting, reading it, understanding it, tafsir of it, all of that kind of thing, focusing on Quran and building your relationship with Allah through Quran. The next action item to focus on is journaling, and he said it's so powerful to journal. I mentioned that I used to struggle with journaling because the way I was taught journaling when I read about it in like self-help books is to write every day, write my feelings, write my thoughts, write my goals, that kind of thing. And I was never consistent at it because it just didn't feel like me. And then recently I was taught by one of my own coaches. She said, Amira, what you should do, instead of just writing your feelings and goals, write to Allah. So literally address each journal item that you do each day, address it as Ya Allah or Dear Allah, and write a letter to Allah each day. You can fill it with your du'as, fill it with the things you're struggling with, fill it with your emotions. So doing that really shifted everything to me, because I felt a lot more excited to write to Allah, and that's what really helped me with journaling. The next thing he mentioned is affirmations. So positive statements that you repeatedly say over and over to yourself on a daily basis that facilitate your healing. So saying things like, I am healed, my body is healthy. Whatever you want your body to be like, if you don't want to have that condition, flip it. What if you didn't have endometriosis, or you didn't have PCOS, or you didn't have irregular periods? What would you have instead? So it would be, my periods are really comfortable, my periods are really regular. Saying what you want to happen. If you don't want endometriosis, it could be like, my uterus is perfect, or whatever it is. Like saying those statements over and over, my body is healthy, repeating those to yourself over and over and over, because you are reframing your thoughts and your stories, and your subconscious doesn't know the difference between real and imagined. Final two things are, if you're going to prioritize, if you're going to take part in healing yourself emotionally, the way to do it is to schedule it, because it has to become a priority. Just like when you go to the doctor and they give you medication and they say, take it 3 times a day at these 3 times, you kind of know the schedule for those medications. You need to schedule this in a similar way. So look at your calendar, look at when you're usually free, to spend half an hour on yourself doing what I mentioned, the dhikr, the Quran, the journaling, and so on. Schedule it half an hour, 3 hours, however long you have each day, and prioritize it. Put it on your calendar, know when you're going to do it so that you're consistent. So scheduling it is really important. Prioritizing it is really important. Not seeing it as this kind of like woo-woo thing that, oh, this might work and maybe I'll try it. It's no, it's actually, this is the main thing I should be focusing on, even more than the medication, for example. Not saying that you have to stop the medication. I'm simply saying that the emotional healing is a lot more important to focus on. Final thing that was mentioned a little bit was he talks about tapping. Tapping, another name for it is EFT, or Emotional Freedom Technique. This is something that you can search on your own. Literally, if you go onto YouTube and type EFT for and whatever condition you're experiencing, you might find some EFT sequences that you can follow. It's literally tapping on certain points on your body like this, and it helps you to release any negative or blocked emotions that are stuck in your body. So I'll just repeat that again. It's EFT. It stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. It's also known as tapping. If you type EFT tapping for and the condition you're going through, you might find something related to your specific condition. But even if you don't find something for your condition, you can find general EFT tapping for stress, or for anger, or for sadness, for the emotion that you're struggling with. It helps to release any blocked or negative emotions. Okay, that is literally everything. I hope you found this beneficial. I'm really, really sorry that I didn't manage to save the original live discussion that I had with Brother Zuhair. It was amazing, but inshallah, everything I discussed or shared with you in this video is everything that I remember. Just want to remind you that inshallah this Friday we'll be doing a Q&A with Brother Zuhair from Aafiah Healing. So if you have any questions, definitely come to that live if you can. It's at 8:30 p.m. UK time this Friday. If you can't come live, there's a question box in my stories at the moment, so send me a question there. And if you are really committed and serious about your emotional healing, check out the work that Aafiah Healing are doing, because they can support you inshallah in fully healing the condition that you're going through. So thank you so much everyone for being here. You're welcome. I can see lots of like messages saying thank you and jazakallah khairan. So you're welcome, wa iyaki. And yeah, I'm going to inshallah save this. Thank you so much everyone. I'm going to leave now. So take care and assalamu alaikum.